Hi there, my name is Carmen Liziswain from Switch On Health, and welcome to tonight's free webinar on manufacturing health solutions. So if you're watching this live, please do stick around for comments and questions at the end, and feel free to pop in any questions in the chat box as we go. We're excited to announce that there will be a draw for a $50 credit from us here at Switch On Health for one lucky attendee. And this can go towards your next enrolment, whether it be your current course of study or you might like to do one of our short courses. We also do have a very exciting lucky door prize from Manufacturing Health Solutions. And I'll let Bryan and Vennesia talk about that during their presentation. So if you're watching this live on YouTube, or watching this back on YouTube, you're welcome to pop any questions you've got into the comments box below, and we promise to get back to you. Also, if you're watching on YouTube and you like what we do, please do click on the subscribe button, because the more subscribers we have, the more we can offer. And we look forward to offering you more. So tonight I am very happy to be joined by Vennesia and Bryan, who will be introducing Manufacturing Health Solutions. So Manufacturing Health Solutions is an Australian boutique contract manufacturer of innovative health foods and nutraceuticals intended for the health and wellness market. They specialise in small to medium contract manufacturing, private label manufacturing, and product development collaboration. And having had extensive experience in nutraceuticals, functional foods, protein powders, cosmetic products, including creams, ointments, and more. So, Bryan, I will hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very kind words, Carmen. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bryan Saunders. I work at Manufacturing Health Solutions. Today, we're going to go through a brief discussion on contract manufacturing and what that actually is. I'm not sure if you've had previous experience or presentations from contract manufacturers, so this is by no means going to be an exhaustive presentation. Hopefully, there'll be some lessons learned here that you can carry forward with you into your careers and potentially offer you some insight as to what contract manufacturers actually do. But bear in mind that this is very much centered around what we do as a smaller manufacturer. And sorry, for those of you who do want to have a look at the website, I've included the QR code down the bottom right-hand side of the screen. I know how difficult it is to try to punch in web addresses on the fly. So why this presentation might be useful to you, as potential practitioners in the future, some of you may be directly involved or employed in the contract manufacturing industry. Nothing that we do here is able to happen without the involvement of a practitioner. And I'll go through this in the future, I have no clinical background, neither does Vennesia. And so all of the formulations that we put forward for the things that we manufacture for clients are actually formulated by either a naturopath or a food scientist or somebody of that nature who has technical training. There's a whole bunch of reasons, and I'll go through that in the future as to why that needs to happen. Some of you may be involved in consulting or regulatory compliance, and I'll talk more about this in the presentation. And those are the types of people that are going to keep us honest as manufacturers about what we do. So we actually engage with external consultants to review every single one of our formulas to make sure that they comply with the appropriate regulatory frameworks, so that not only us as manufacturers don't get into any strife, but also our clients are able to offer the best value for the people who purchase or consume their supplements. Some of you may choose to establish your own practices in the future, and you'll have a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, and you'll seek opportunities to enhance the income of your practices. And introducing some supplement lines that are branded specifically for your niche and carry your practice's branding is a good way to introduce additional income. And there are many practitioners who engage us specifically for that purpose. There are many practitioners who will go down the niche of either fertility or or general gut health, or whatever it is that ends up taking your fancy in the future, you may decide, actually, you know what, it's going to be in my best interest financially and also my client's best interest if I can have some buy-in in terms of the supplements that they're ultimately consuming, so that I can make sure they're having the most effective supplement regime to support their health outcomes. And some of you listening tonight may actually decide to go down the pure product development route because you are through and through entrepreneurs. And this is something that contract manufacturers can assist you with. If you have a particular interest in a niche or a particular desire to retire early, there are ways that contract manufacturers can assist you in realizing those goals. So the scope of this presentation, I'll briefly discuss what is contract manufacturing. I'll talk briefly about who we are as Manufacturing Health Solutions. I know some of this information has already been covered, so I won't rehash it in great detail. I'll go through some general services that are offered by contract manufacturers. Again, this is mostly geared towards what we do as a smaller manufacturer, but you can assume that other manufacturers will have equivalent offerings. And finally, we'll conclude with a shameless plug on some of our partners and the products that they offer, being Bioactive and BioResearch. Okay, the disclaimer. Anybody who claims to be an expert probably isn't an expert, and that's probably doubly true for myself. As I've said, I have no clinical background. I spent the vast majority of my adult life in the Army as an Army officer, and I'm an engineer by education. What I do have, though, is a very strong desire to educate myself. I have a very strong health interest, and I'm mostly involved in R&D type work and business development work for Manufacturing Health Solutions. What I do want to draw to your attention is something called the Dunning-Kruger effect, and we see this playing out all over the place. I'll leave you to research that in your own time, but I can offer you a synopsis as follows. Ultimately, we all believe that we know more about a given topic than we actually know. And similarly, or a different interpretation of that, is that we all believe that we can reach expert level with 10% worth of the work, and this is seldom true. And so my advice this evening is just that. This is my advice. I am by no means an expert, and for many of the traps that I will offer for young players or things that might bring you unstuck as we go, cover some of the information in this domain. Understand that the Dunning-Kruger effect impacts me too. I like to think that I'm an expert when I'm actually not. So take everything that I say with a grain of salt and do your own research. What is contract manufacturing? Well, the Macquarie Dictionary offers us the following definition. Contract manufacturing is a verb, and it's the joyful practice of methodically converting your life savings into opportunities for your clients to retire early by selling high-quality health supplements and wellness products. I was taught in my years in the Army that it's important to open any presentation with a poor attempt at humor, because it instantly engenders, it instantly wins over the audience and converts them to your message. So I'd like to thank you in advance for feeling sympathetic towards my content this evening, and I look forward to your attention. Contract manufacturing actually involves the outsourcing of the production process to a third-party manufacturer. This arrangement allows for practitioners or startups, small businesses and the like, to focus on growing their business while leaving the manufacturing tasks to experts who can take advantage of economies of scale with specialized equipment and facilities. That's a long spiel to ultimately end up with what you see on the right-hand side of the screen there. What we seek to do is to spend a whole bunch of money and capital building purpose-made facilities that are going to comply with a bunch of regulatory frameworks, a bunch of food licensing frameworks, to produce products that look like what you see on the right-hand side of the screen, except they're going to carry your label. There are different types of things that we can manufacture, everything from general powder supplements through to topical ointments, balms, and down the bottom there you'll see some of the liquid type bottles that we will produce, which are going to contain tinctures or homeopathic remedies or extracts or anything of that nature. So who are Manufacturing Health Solutions? We are a boutique contract manufacturer. That's a very polite way of saying that we're a relatively small fish in a very big pond. And subsequently, we focus on small to medium contract manufacturing. Some of the other services that we offer are private labeling as well as product development services. And I'll go through the difference between what is contract manufacturing in terms of establishing a new contract from scratch versus private labeling. And I'll talk a little bit in detail about the product development process that we go through. Vennesia Saunders is the managing director of Manufacturing Health Solutions. She has almost 20 years worth of experience in the industry. She was previously employed at Natural Vitality Australia, Prima Life. Those businesses wound up and presented Vennesia the opportunity to establish her own business. She has some background with Wonder Foods, Bioactive, Bioresearch, and NPN. So there's quite a wealth of experience there, and particularly in the production of powders and drinks or functional foods, but also in a large amount of homeopathic remedies, as well as topical ointments like balms and creams. So what are the types of services that you might see offered by contract manufacturers? I'll go through each of these so that you understand what they are, but briefly, we're looking at powdered manufacturing, liquid and cosmetic manufacturing, packing and labeling. Understanding that, you would assume that if you're going to manufacture any kind of powdered supplement, you must be packaging as well. And that is truthful. However, there are also clients who will approach us without any powdered manufacturing per se. So these are clients who may have a particular niche carved out for themselves that might focus on Australian grown or organic supplements. So those types of people are very fastidious, or those types of brand owners are very fastidious in terms of what their product actually contains, where it comes from. Some of the stuff might actually be single source, so they're only supplying product that comes from a single farmer. So in that instance, we actually offer packing and labeling as a standalone service. So we'll take bulk ingredients from those individuals or those brand owners. We'll decant them into what you would see presented to an end user. We also offer a development product pipeline, which I'll go through, white labeling and third-party logistics. Sometimes you'll see white labeling used interchangeably with private labeling. Ultimately, it's the same thing, and I'll go through it. Okay, so straight off the bat, some traps for new players as it relates to contract manufacturing. It's really important to understand the difference between a food and a therapeutic good. We in Manufacturing Health Solutions, we actually don't manufacture health products. We manufacture functional foods. So health supplements that are classified as foods are regulated by the Food Standards of Australia and New Zealand, or FSANZ. These regulations cover the safety in food labeling, ensuring that food supplements are safe for consumption and that they're accurately labeled. There's also going to be some ingredient standards to ensure that only approved ingredients can be used. And there's strict guidelines in terms of the quantities of certain vitamins and minerals. So you may find yourself looking at a particular formulation, and if you tweak the constituents to increase the relative quantities of certain vitamins, you may actually transition that product from something that would have otherwise been a functional food, something that we can manufacture for you, into something that now falls into the domain of the TGA and GMP guidelines. Some health claims are going to be something that can quickly bring new players unstuck. And so our advice to our clients is to be very careful about the claims that you're making. Any health claims that you're making on products that are produced by us must comply with the FSANZ standards and be scientifically substantiated. So understand that you can't claim that your magic mung beans can cure cancer and then try to sell that as a food, because that's not the type of thing that's going to get across the line. On the other side of the coin, you have therapeutic goods. So health supplements that are classified as therapeutic goods are regulated by the Therapeutics Goods Administration. There is something called the Good Manufacturing Practices, and manufacturers who comply with the GMP standards essentially have to ensure that they meet a higher standard than those that apply to the FSANZ guidelines. This is particularly this is particularly pertinent for the consistency and the quality control the quality control that's involved with producing those products. There's also a requirement for listing and registration. So those supplements must be listed and registered with the TGA, and they involve a detailed assessment of the safety, quality, and efficacy of those supplements before you can actually sell them to the public. So you'll look, just the listing price is about $1,500, and the process to generate that report for you, to get that across the line, you probably are not going to get much change for tens of thousands of dollars. Once your product is actually on the market, there's ongoing post-market monitoring that's conducted by the TGA to ensure that the products comply with the standards and guidelines, and also monitoring for adverse reactions associated with any of those products. So what's the key takeaways here? Understand that we skirt a very thin line in terms of practitioners who are seeking to achieve clinical outcomes and are seeking to achieve, things that are approaching therapeutic doses. Understand, again, I have no technical background to claim what is a therapeutic dose and what isn't a therapeutic dose. But practitioners will often approach us and say, hey, we want to manufacture this thing or that thing or the other thing. And some of you in the future may choose to, as part of your own practice, compound ingredients and or quantities for your clients in a small environment that you can do under your qualifications that we are not able to replicate as a food manufacturer. Similarly, there may be things that are listed in the ART or the Australian Register of Therapeutics Goods, which would automatically exclude us as a food manufacturer from being able to manufacture that supplement. And a good example is one that's listed there, which is a Silogit tincture, which contained substantia and pine pollen. So whilst it was relatively easy for us to build out that Silogit tincture, and technically we can absolutely do the substantia and pine pollen tincture, we weren't able to actually manufacture that product and sell it as a food, which is what the client ultimately wanted, because substantia is actually contained on the ART gene. So what we had to do instead is, through external naturopaths who are acting as our regulatory advisors, is establish a herbal blend that will achieve a clinical equivalent. Understand that I'm not qualified to talk about what a clinical equivalent is, for what the substantia would actually offer in that formulation. So these are just things to be mindful of for yourselves as practitioners moving forward. Just because you can technically do a thing doesn't mean that we are able to offer the same service to you as a food manufacturer. Okay, so now we get into the meat and potatoes of what contract manufacturing is and the processes. So the bulk of the work that we do is associated with powder blending. And you can basically think about this as being a shake or a smoothie. And the machines that you see on the right-hand side of the screen are the machines that are ultimately going to achieve this for us. The top one is basically a ribbon blender, and the bottom one is called the V blend, and it essentially rotates. Both of these machines seek to mix multiple powdered ingredients to achieve a homogeneous blend. It's really important that the products that we produce offer the same ingredients in every single teaspoon that is consumed. That allows us to offer consistent dosages and ultimately high efficacy of the supplements that we produce. Understand that every single powder that's involved in the manufacturing process is going to have different flow characteristics. It's going to have different densities, and that final word there relates to the tendency or the affinity that a given product is going to have for water, right? So the reason this is a problem is because you can end up with supplements that will clump very easily, or certain ingredients that will seek to clump with each other in the presence of water. And that's why you'll see most powdered supplements will actually contain a small bag of something that is intended to absorb the moisture out of the product. And that's why our facilities are actually climate controlled during the manufacturing process to ensure that there's minimum water that's present in the air when we're packaging these products. Blending often also requires careful consideration of the desired final product and the presentation. And what I mean by that is, it's possible that you could conceive of the greatest supplement that has ever existed, but ultimately you have to get to a point where a human is going to willingly consume that supplement, okay? And so, because otherwise you're going to end up with people who are essentially non-compliant in their own healthcare regime, which is not a great outcome because they're wasting money and you're wasting time. And so this is the reason you need to be mindful of this is because as part of the manufacturing process, there are occasions when we basically have no choice but to include additives, as much as people hate the word additives. But those additives are required to either stabilize an ingredient, to help with the flow in the packaging, to assist with shelf life, or just to make the thing more pleasant for humans to consume. So liquid and cosmetic manufacturing is another service that we offer. The machine that you can see up there on the left-hand side, it doesn't look really impressive. It's called a homogenizer. Ultimately, what that machine wants to do is the same thing that the ribbon blenders or the V blenders want to do for powders. And that's to take dissimilar liquids and blend them into a homogeneous product. We typically use this to create topical creams, balms, and ointments. It's not homogenizers and that type of thing are not used for homeopathic remedies or herbal extracts and tinctures. There's a different process that are used, and that can those processes can typically be very much labor intensive and done by hand. All of your liquid preparations will typically be more labor intensive and more time intensive. And the reason that is because very often we'll have to manipulate temperature. Imagine trying to mix oil and water. Anybody would tell you that that's not going to work. It actually can work when you include the appropriate additives. We're not typically trying to mix oil and water. We're typically trying to mix other ingredients, but they can be as repellent as oil and water. And for us, it's not just thinking about the manufacturing process and saying, all right, well, when we have mixed these two liquid ingredients and we put this in the packaging, it's not just for our benefit. We have to be mindful of the fact that those supplements may sit on a shelf for 3 or 4 months before the end user actually gets to them. So those ingredients need to be mixed in such a manner that they're going to be shelf stable for a few months. And that's the reason that the liquid and cosmetics manufacturing can be a little bit more labor intensive and also a little bit more technically demanding. The packing and labeling. So the main thing that I want to draw your attention to here is it's a service that's going to be offered by most contract manufacturers. As I said in the beginning, there are going to be some clients who are going to carve out a niche for themselves that actually doesn't involve much product formulation work or much blending. There may be single source ingredients and they basically bring it to us in bulk. We pack it for them. And the style and types of packaging, there's a different one for every day of the year. From your humble paper craft bags with the window on the top left, all the way through to your, high quality gummy glass jars on the bottom right there. Most people will go with something that's kind of like in the middle, either the craft bags or the HDPE jars. Something that is often overlooked or not well thought of until you actually get through the manufacturing process is the labeling that goes onto each of these products. And this is something that will trip up sort of layman clients who will approach us who have no previous background in the industry at all. And they'll basically have this concept of a product and they'll see this really cool jar and they'll say, okay, I want you to pack that ingredient in this really cool jar that I'm going to order from China. And the problem is that we have regulations we need to comply with. Those containers that are used must comply with the relevant food standards. They must be able to prevent oxidation of the supplements. They must be able to prevent water getting into the supplements. They must be able to prevent vermin accessing those supplements. And so something that is often not really thought of until you get to the pointy end of the product development is how do I want this package to actually present to my end users? And I'll talk more about why that is relevant when I talk about, the message that you're selling to clients. But understand that the packaging journey is very rarely static, okay? Unless you're able to lock down your supply chain in such a manner that you're never going to alter any of your ingredient suppliers, chances are at some point in the journey, you're going to have to change your packaging a little bit. And the reason that I say this is because you may have a very well-established formula, and for one reason or another, you have to transition a particular supplier for a particular ingredient. And their manufacturing process results in a powder that is actually far less dense. And so previously, where you were using a 1.5 liter HDPE jar, which is kind of like what you see in the center of the screen there, to contain your 1 kg of supplement, because of the reduced density in one constituent, you now have to go back to the drawing board and look at a new container because suddenly 1 kg of supplement takes up a lot more space. So what is the product development pipeline? So for us, this typically begins with a client brief. As I said before, a lot of people who approach us are essentially laymen. They have no interest or real experience in the sort of manufacturing space before, and for whatever reason, they've just, suddenly have a burning desire to manufacture some supplement that they've seen, or they have had their own health experience and they were really moved by some formula that was provided to them by a naturopath or practitioner, like, hey, I want to manufacture this thing for myself because this changed my world and I want to change the world for other people. So the client brief comes to us and it typically contains one of two things. It'll either have a desired end state, which reads something like, I want to change the world of gut health because this supplement changed my gut health and I want to change other people's lives. We've had people approach us for ADHD cognitive support supplements for children. Other people will approach us and say, hey, you know what? I really want to sell powdered magic beans because that's where the future is going and that's what I want to do. So some people will come to us with a clinical end state in mind, and others will come to us with like an ingredient end state in mind. And that very much dictates, how many external parties we need to get involved to meet the actual desired outcome. Once we kind of know what the what the client wants to do, what their desired end state is going to be, whether they want the thing to present as like a high-end supplement or something that's going to be more accessible to your mom and dad style consumers. We then go into the feasibility review. And for us, this is where we will engage with external naturopaths because we don't have naturopaths on staff. Some of you may find yourself employed full-time for larger contract manufacturers, and all that you'll do all day, every day is look at formulations for new clients, or you'll be revising existing formulas to tweak the flavor profile or enhance some clinical outcome based on some new research that's come out or whatever the case may be. The feasibility review for us will address two things predominantly. Firstly, can we actually manufacture the thing? Because it might be the greatest tincture that has ever existed. But if you're asking us to, manufacture some super rare ingredient that can only be sourced from South America and certain moon phases, and it needs to be dried out for 3 days in the sun before it can be immersed in the solvent to actually do the extraction, that's not going to be something that you're going to be able to provide at volume. Okay. And so technically and clinically, the thing might be amazing, but that doesn't mean that we can manufacture it for you in a way that's going to allow you to reliably sell that to your clients. And then once we're able to actually produce the thing, we need to make sure that it's going to comply with the food standards, okay? As I've previously said, there's a difference between things that TGA producers can, TGA and GMP labs can produce versus what we can produce. From there, we go into the proof of concept. And for many people, this is the first time that they'll see their finished product in the way that they're imagining it. To get from the feasibility review to the proof of concept is actually, there are a lot more people involved there than most people realize. And this is because, as I said, when we discussed the packaging, a lot of people actually haven't thought about how you position your end product for something that's going to be attractive to your target market. If you are going to position your supplement for something that's supposed to target high-end executives and it looks a little bit more homely or thrifty, it's probably not going to resonate with those people. So, we look at the client brief, and then if you don't come with your own graphics, you don't come with your own food labels, we need to develop those things for you in consultation with you to make sure that ultimately the thing that rolls out of our warehouse is going to be something that resonates with your target market. And from there, we get into the production runs, which is a little bit of what it sounds like. And I'll talk about the 3PL or the third-party logistics in detail later. So some traps for new players as it relates to product development. Our inbox is full of people who will approach us and say, can you manufacture my favorite XYZ, be that sleep supplement, cognitive supplement, joint supplement? It doesn't really matter. Some people will actually just straight up attach a website link to their favorite supplement and say, hey, manufacture this thing for me. I want to manufacture at the same price. So technically the answer is yes, we can manufacture that thing for you. The problem is we might not be able to do it at a rate that is going to be economically viable for you to compete with that. As I said, when I spoke about the Dunning-Kruger effect, we often assume that we're more competent than we actually are. And so people will do some back of the envelope calculations and say, yeah, I can totally do that. Contract manufacturers, like I've very rarely found an occasion where we can reverse engineer a supplement and have that compete solely on price, because it's just very difficult to do. Understand that the people who are involved in producing supplements that you see that are very ubiquitous, okay, things that are going to appear on the first page of Google search results or things that are going to appear at your health store, the brand owners who own that product are not stupid. They have done a large amount of engineering and a large amount of optimization to try to maximize the value associated with every step along the value chain. It's very difficult to take someone who has just rocked up as a first-time manufacturer and compete with those things that you see, because typically the ubiquitous supplements that you will see out there on the market who are dominating the market share have had a long time to establish themselves, and they're optimized to present the way that they present. Other things that we get asked are, as you can see there, can you manufacture 5 units or can you manufacture on demand? Those are basically two of the same things. And it talks about your minimum order quantities. So technically the answer to both of those is yes, we'll make 5 units for you, or we can manufacture 1 unit on demand. But understand that for us to get into the facility, just to power it up and turn all the machines on, is going to be $100 an hour. So if you're going to come to us and say, can you manufacture this one supplement for me? Yeah, we'll do that. But you're going to pay for the full hour. So the unit cost for that supplement is going to be $100. Versus if you come to us and say, can you manufacture 5? We'll probably do it in the same hour. And now your unit cost has changed from $100 to $5. The economies of scale play out even more in your favor if you come to us and say, well, can you manufacture 300? Because then your production costs will go from being $20 down to $9, and this is something that you can actually compete with. Understand that Revolution is more about the story rather than the product. And what I mean by this is a lot of the people who approach us talking about products don't fully realize that actually the contract manufacturing piece is probably only about 25% of the work associated with launching a brand and establishing a product. Human history is full of examples of where we will literally replace one dictator with another dictator, or a dictator that's even worse. You will see humans fork out ridiculous amounts of money for a new phone that is only incrementally better than its predecessor. And if you pause for a second and consider why this is happening, it becomes very apparent that it's more about the story that you're telling, how you're approaching your target market, how you're presenting your product, how you're packaging your product, and the myth that you're building around the thing, than the product itself. Understand that this entire game is very cutthroat. We as manufacturers are always looking at opportunities to up the product that we offer while maintaining the price point, or potentially even lowering the price point, and other manufacturers are going to do that as well. So if you're going to establish a market, or you're seeking to establish a product, and you believe that your only competition or your point of differentiation is going to be on price, understand that other contract manufacturers are out there doing the same thing for other people, and your likelihood of success is going to be far reduced if that's the only way that you're going to differentiate yourself. So what is white label products? White label products, this essentially involves creating generic products that companies can rebrand and sell under their own name. It allows businesses to quickly enter the market without the extensive need for R&D. This is different than establishing bespoke products and doing bespoke product runs. Effectively, what we do here, this is an example of some of the products that we offer under a white label service. So I apologize for the table. I know that tables can make people nauseous in presentations, and this is by no means an exhaustive list. I tried to pick a bunch of random things so that hopefully everybody there can see something that they know and recognize. Ultimately, what we do with white label services is we will manufacture the BCAA that you can see there. We'll also manufacture the carnitine in a 240-gram container. So that product formulation is probably not going to change unless we get some feedback from either the end users or the practitioners to say, hey, can you tweak this, that, or the other thing? Those are products that are established, and production runs basically occur on those. And what we do is you add an extra $1 on the price that you see there. We will add your labels so that you sell those products. And then ultimately, this reflects the purchase price for yourself. It's not a reflection of the end user sale price. Remember what I said, revolutions are more about the story than the actual product. Ultimately, you're going to establish the product market fit, for your particular audience. And so you'll decide what you're going to charge people. When you're going the white label route, there's some tips to think about. The first one is a bit of a gimme. If you're going to establish your own practices and you're seeking to secure some additional income, obviously you'll want to try to customize those as much as possible so it actually reflects your brand and your values. Leverage the economies of scale and order in bulk. And what I mean by that is that you may even choose to go in with some practitioner friends or some colleagues or business partners, however you choose to approach it. Because understand that for us, the process of swapping out a label is fairly trivial. Okay, so if you're going to come to us with an order that's going to be 500 units, 250 of those units are going to have this label and 250 of those units are going to have this label. That process for us is quite labor efficient. And so like down the bottom is what for us, the minimum order would be 6 units. And, there's a baker's dozen if you order more products. That's just an example of like what we do for smaller manufacturing and smaller clients. You'll find that there are even larger discounts for larger volume orders. So you always need to be saying to yourself, how can I maximize the orders that I'm putting in? Because ultimately what you want to do is reduce the labor component versus the ingredient component of any orders that I'm putting in. Okay, third-party logistics. Once you've gone through the journey of establishing your product, you understand how you're going to do the product market fit, you understand how everything's going to play out. You then need to make sure that you can get those products to your clients in a reliable way. One way of doing that is to establish your own warehouse. You establish your own sales channel. We do the contract manufacturing for you in quantities that float your boat, and then you store those orders. So you store that inventory, and then every time your clients pull it in order, you're going to do the fulfillment yourself. And that literally looks like you wrapping that thing in its the appropriate packaging, putting on the labels and sending it off. Alternatively, you can engage a third-party logistics provider like us. And what we do is we warehouse those products for you. We do the on-demand order fulfillment because we have all of the infrastructure required to do that. We do the picking, the packing, and the shipping. And that literally involves taking the stuff off the shelf, putting it in the appropriate packaging to comply with Australia Post, putting the label on it and sending it off. The other thing that people don't think about very often is returns and recalls. So someone like Amazon might be able to offer you a 3PL service, but understand that for for food products, there needs to be the ability to recall that, because if we are advised by some of our suppliers that there's been a contamination in their production facilities or whatever the case may be, and they need to recall every single product that was produced with a given batch, when we are manufacturing things, we automatically do the batching and the use by dates. And so for us, it's very easy to then, as an extension in 3PL space, it's very easy for us to see who's the end user that's consuming our product and inform them that it's been recalled. Someone like Amazon or another third-party provider that isn't purpose-built to facilitate health foods or functional foods might not be able to offer you that same level of fidelity in terms of where your product is and facilitate a recall. Okay, and Vennesia is going to talk about some of our partners now.
Hi, so we basically have partnered with Bioactive and BioResearch, products that we're actually currently manufacturing. BioResearch is a homeopathic that's been around for over 30 years. And the founder, Clive Richards, actually taught us how to actually manufacture using the old alchemy teachings. Today, we are still using those same methods to actually make the homeopaths. And we've had really good results with the homeopathic drops in that. The drops actually come in a 20 ml, 50 ml, and a spray, which is really easy to administer to children, old people and that. And it's always really easy to put in your water bottle and actually use it on the go. The other company we've also partnered with is Bioactive, and they actually are offering a whole range of compounding products, as well as your herbs, your tinctures, your herbal extracts, tablets, your powders. So what we're actually currently doing is offering all the students coming through the opportunity to actually purchase through us, and we can actually assist to facilitate your ordering.
Okay, so pending any questions, that's the end of the presentation. For anybody who would like to check out the homeopathic remedies or anything that Vennesia spoken about, again, the QR code there will save you having to punch in that URL. And that's all she wrote, pending any questions.
Okay, I'm sure there's a lot of questions out there. So before we jump to that, if you're watching this live, we'll stop the recording in a moment and open it up for questions. Remember that there will be the draw for the $50 credit as well as the prize from Manufacturing Health Solutions. If you're watching the recording, thank you for watching to the end and learn more with Switch on Health.